Forza Horizon 5 is the fifth entry in the open-world arcade racing series Forza Horizon, and although this game was released back in 2021, I have never had the chance to cover it on this channel. And given that there are no big releases this month, I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to go back and cover some old popular and technically advanced games like this one. So in this video, and as usual, I'll go through all the game's graphics settings to examine the visual and performance impact of each one. And the game has a lot of settings, so let's not waste any more time and let's get going. Now, since its release, the game has received numerous updates that introduced new graphical features, and one of these additions is the implementation of temporal upscaling and anti-aliasing in the form of DLAA, DLSS/DLAA, FSR2 and XeSS. And here, if we compare DLAA, GAA and 4X and 8X MSAA, we can see that both GAA and DLAA do a much better job at cleaning up the image and eliminating aliasing, especially on foliage and trees. But in terms of clarity, MSAA obviously looks sharper. Additionally, I've noticed some weird graphical artifacts when using any temporal upscaler or anti-aliasing, especially during foggy weather, like this black halo around all the distant objects in the fog, which is not visible with MSAA. And on the performance side at 1440p, 4X MSAA and GAA are pretty much similar in this regard, while DLAA performs slightly worse at a cost of around 3 to 4%, and 8X MSAA is even more demanding with around 16% cost. And here is a quick look at how disabling AA completely or using FXAA looks and performs compared to 4X and 8X MSAA. In terms of upscaling, comparing DLSS, FSR2 and XeSS shows that FSR2 exhibits more shimmering and aliasing, and XeSS provides a much better image quality and looks comparable to DLSS. However, XeSS has slightly worse performance compared to the other upscalers. And overall, which one of these options you should choose is entirely up to you. If you want a cleaner and less aliased image, DLAA, GAA alongside DLSS and XeSS are the best options in this regard. But if you want a sharper image, MSAA is the way to go, and I recommend at least 4X MSAA. DLSS frame generation is also supported here, but in a fast-paced racing game like this, there are significant variations between the frames, which can be a challenge and a stress test for frame generation. And unfortunately, DLSS frame gen failed this test and exhibits a lot of visual artifacts, such as the ghosting behind the car and the UI garbling when driving at high speeds. And the performance gain when using frame generation is not worth it, like here where we can see that enabling frame gen increases the frame rates by around 37%, which is not even close to double the performance that we usually see in other games. I also tried Nucom's frame generation mod on the 3060 Ti, but the visual artifacts were even worse here, with a lower performance gain compared to the official DLSS frame generation. So overall, I don't think this game is suitable for frame generation, and I don't recommend using it. Let's move on to the graphics section, starting with Anisotropic Filtering. And this setting is crucial to keep it high in this game, because most of the time you'll be looking at paved roads and surfaces. And as you can see here, it has a significant visual impact on texture details, while the performance impact is negligible. Therefore, I recommend keeping this setting at high. Shadow quality controls the resolution and filtering quality of shadows cast by objects and vehicles. And here we can see a significant improvement in the quality of shadows when going to high and the options above that. And on the performance side at this scene, going from off to low costs around 3%, to high 6%, ultra 7%, and to extreme 16%. So here I recommend high or ultra shadow quality. Next we have night shadows. This setting when enabled allows the player vehicle headlights and some street lamps to cast shadows at night. And performance wise enabling this one can cost around 9%. So for my optimized settings I recommend turning off night shadows, but if you have enough performance to spare, keep them enabled. There are two settings for motion blur. First we have this one which controls the amount of motion blur, and it does not affect the performance that much, around 2 to 3% cost when going from off to long. And the second setting controls the quality of motion blur, and similar to the first one it does not have a major impact on performance. Now usually I don't use motion blur on most games, but here in a racing game enabling motion blur can improve the experience and amplify the sense of speed. And if you want to use it, I recommend short plus ultra quality motion blur. Moving on to environment texture quality. This one mainly controls the resolution and quality of the textures for elements like the road and foliage/trees. And as we can see here, going below ultra significantly compromises the quality of textures. And there is a performance impact of around 6% when going from low to ultra and 9% when going to extreme. And VRAM wise, on an 8GB GPU at native 1440p, going to extreme can exceed that 8GB limit, causing the game to display this warning message frequently. Therefore, if you have an 8GB GPU and you are playing at native 1440p, I recommend ultra texture quality. Environment geometry quality is linked to the texture quality setting, because turning texture quality to high will also automatically change the environment geometry quality to high as well. And this setting doesn't only controls the quality of world geometry, but it also adjusts the density of scattered objects like grass and foliage, and even the population density in some areas like here. And when it comes to LOD pop-in, only the two highest options, ultra and extreme, are capable of minimizing it. And performance wise, when GPU bound, there is no significant impact when going from very low to high, while going to ultra costs around 6% and to extreme 13%. However, when CPU bound, the gap between very low and both ultra and extreme is larger, with ultra costing around 12% and extreme around 17%. So here, if you have a good CPU, I recommend ultra to minimize the amount of pop-in. Otherwise, use high geometry quality. Next we have SSAO Quality. This one controls the quality of ambient shading, and turning off SSAO, as you can see here, negatively impacts the game's visual presentation and makes everything looks flat. And performance wise, going from off to high costs around 3% and to ultra 12%. So here I recommend high SSAO. Now for vehicle reflections, Forza Horizon 5 relies on real-time cube map reflections, and the reflection quality setting controls the quality of these reflections. And here we can see that the quality of the reflections starts getting worse when going below high, and going below medium disables the windscreen reflection inside the car. And performance-wise, in a scene with a lot of cars, we can see that high, ultra and extreme have similar performance, with a cost of around 10% when coming from very low, while medium costs around 6%. So here I recommend at least high reflections, but if you need some extra performance, medium is also a good option. World car level of detail controls the geometry quality of both the player car and other cars driven by AI or other players. And here we can see that low significantly compromises the car's geometry quality, while medium and high look quite similar, and the same thing with ultra and extreme. And performance wise, going from low to high and ultra costs around 4%, and going to extreme around 8%. So here I recommend ultra. Deformable terrain quality controls the details on the terrain when driving over some deformable surfaces such as snow, mud or sand like here. And we can see that all the options below extreme show some visible lower details on the tire's imprints. And performance wise, this setting has negligible impact, therefore I recommend keeping it at extreme. And for the Horizon 5, screen space reflections are used for reflective environmental elements, such as water puddles, rivers, and road surfaces. And this setting controls the quality and accuracy of these reflections. And here we can see that the details on the reflections start getting worse when dropping below high. And performance-wise when driving, there is like 2% when going from low to ultra and around 4 to 5% when going to extreme. So here I recommend ultra or extreme SSR. Next we have lens effects. This one adjusts various screen space effects that can appear on the screen, like lens flare or water droplets when driving through wet surfaces or when it's raining. And visually speaking, I can't see any difference between medium, high and ultra. However, ultra performs slightly worse than high and medium, so if you like these effects, keep this setting at high. Similar to texture and geometry LOD settings, shader quality is linked to SSAO and shadow quality, as lowering shader quality to medium will automatically change shadow quality to ultra and turn off SSAO. And the shader quality has a major impact on the game's visuals, particularly on the road surface and the lighting on foliage, as you can see here, where these elements look more natural when going to ultra and extreme. And performance-wise, going from low and medium to high costs around 4%, to ultra 5% and to extreme 9%. So here I recommend ultra and don't go below high to keep SSAO enabled. Particle effects quality adjusts the quantity of particles in addition to the quality of various volumetric effects, like here with the smoke particles from the tires, where we can see less of the smoke effect with very low compared to the higher options, or here inside the sandstorm, where we can see that very low removes all the volumetric effects, while high and ultra show more of the sand particles blowing across the road compared to low and medium. And performance wise, there is like 1% cost when going to low, 2% to medium and 5% when going to high and ultra. So here I recommend at least medium particles effects quality. And finally we have ray tracing, or specifically ray traced reflections. RT was previously limited to the Forza Vista presentation mode, but Playground Games added RT reflections to free roam and races through an update, with 2 additional options, Ultra and Extreme. Now ray tracing in Forza Horizon 5 only affects the player car's self-reflections. Other reflections like the environment still done using the traditional real-time cube mapping system, and because of this, ray tracing is not as transformative here as in other games, and it's so subtle and hard to notice unless you're driving a specific car with a reflective paint like this one. And performance wise, going from off to ultra costs around 5% and to extreme 6%. So here for my optimized settings, I recommend turning off ray tracing. And with all that being said, these are my recommended settings for Forza Horizon 5. Let's now compare the performance of the optimized and max settings at 1440p DLAA with ultra texture quality on both sides. And I'll be using the in-game benchmark, which accurately represents the worst case scenario and serves as a stress test for both the CPU and the GPU. And here we can see that the optimized settings run about 44% better on average than the max settings, with minimal visual impact. And with that we arrive at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching and for your time. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if not, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.